Welcome to the Play Ed 3 podcast, where you're the reoccurring guest, whether you're in the classroom or shaping education behind the scenes. I'm Tisha Poncio.
And I'm Rick Butterworth. Together, we bring stories, insights, and conversations that matter to educators, learners, and change makers. Our goal is to bring everyone together to learn, grow, and play. Welcome to the Play Ed 3 podcast. My name's Rick, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Tisha. Tish, there's some weird things going on over on your side of the pond that I've been noticing on socials.
Per usual.
Per usual, yeah. It's not the usual things that you'd probably think of, but what on earth is... What's the company called? Eagle something. They've got some kind of, like, partnership with Sydney Sweeney, and then
American
I've
Eagle.
seen... American Eagle, that was it. And then I've seen a parody of your president jumping on the bandwagon. And
suddenly this has taken a very swift turn, and I was not prepared for that. What I will say, Rick, as a former Old Navy employee, I love Old Navy jeans, actually, and they last forever. I just want you to know that. You know, that's just my preference. I'm also a Ralph Lauren fan. I don't know. I didn't know you were going to bring jeans into the subject. I was not prepared for that one.
well, I'm just seeing some really weird, like, partnership things, and then other companies have jumped on with, like, Levi's, I think, was it? Or
here's what I want to
Old
say.
Navy's jumped on the bandwagon with this whole thing, and
I
I'm just
don't know.
like,
You know,
what
I
on
think
earth are you all doing
starting?
over that?
You're starting a debate, and I will just say I don't think Old Navy has quote unquote jumped on the bandwagon. It's not like, you know, a campaign can be launched in like 2 days. I'm pretty sure the back to school campaigns have been being planned for probably a month or more. So on the bandwagon, we're going to have to just backtrack from that. And in order to do that, Rick, I'm going to invite our very next guest. I love this guy. I found him on TikTok one day, and I was like, why do I not know him? And then we had some conversations with him, just randomly, like just chill, having some coffee on a Saturday or Sunday, chatting about AI. We have today with us Matthew Karabinos, and the way that I remember to say his name is because it reminds me of the Care Bears. I know you're going to think that that's crazy, but I loved the Care Bears. And Matt is a K-12 educator, and he is very big into AI. When I say that, he is an AI integration specialist, which I think is really cool, because when I became a technology specialist, it was just like instructional technology specialist, but now we have AI integration, which I do think is really important. We're going to talk about that. He also has been on multiple podcasts. You can probably Google search his name and find him. And then he is really about standards aligned resources and helping teachers with AI in their classroom. Matt, welcome to the Play Ed 3 podcast today with Rick and I. We're so excited to have you. How are you? What have you been up to?
Thanks for having me in like an official capacity, like not just random Sunday chats. So like this is like way more official. I'm like, oh, I had to like do my hair today, you know, like get all dolled up for this.
Exactly.
No, doing good. School year is like right around the corner, so that's like freaking me out a little bit. But you know,
sure.
Just like everything else, I just kind of
talk about that a little bit. You said you're freaked out a little bit about the school year starting, and you know, you were also a 6th grade math and science teacher. You've been in the classroom. It's like the Sunday scaries before a school year starts. Explain the emotions that you go through when you get back from vacation like you are now, and you are seeing that ahead of you. What emotions do you feel?
So like I used to get way more like nervous about it. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make like a good impression on my students? And like, like that. But anymore, I think this year is going to be my 8th like official year of like full-time teaching. So I don't really get those anymore. I just get like, how can I make it so that I have a community in my classroom? That's like literally my big stressor, is that over the last couple of years of teaching 6th grade is I've found how difficult it is to actually like build community with kids who just because of that time period in their life, just don't like each other. Like, it is so hard to like teach kids, and I'll never forget. It's like, I love to teach about empathy. I have posters of Ted Lasso stuff all over my room to like keep things positive. And it is so hard with middle schoolers, man. They fight that tooth and nail. So I just don't give up. I go down in the trenches with them, and we go for it. So, that's kind of what I get nervous about, is like, how can I get these guys on board with what I'm going to do? Because I've also realized let's see, this is going to be my third year at this school. So the last 3 years at this school, I am a different teacher than they've ever had before. There's a lot of times where the kids are like, what do you mean we could like choose what we want to do? I was like, you could like, I've never, you could choose what you want to do. Like, do you want to do a quiz? Do you want to build something? Do you want to give me a podcast? Do you want to record a video? And they're like, like Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, they just stand there. I don't know what to do with my hands. So like, I've learned that I have to kind of build that up in them. So that's kind of where this year I'm like, all right, we're going to start there and be like, hey, we will take quizzes occasionally. I said, but 99% of them will not be graded. And that throws people off. The students are always like, I don't understand that. So there's a lot that I have to cover before we like get into the year. So that's kind of like, if I can get everybody on board with that from the beginning of the year, I think we'll be okay. And then I'm really trying hard this year to lean into like more student-centered stuff. So they're going to be really thrown off when I'm like, what do you think should be our classroom norms?
Do you know, Matt,
what do you
that
think they
that?
should be?
It's so interesting that you say that, because, and Rick has some questions for you. We're getting to that, Rick. I was going to have a thought about this.
I just sit here for half an hour and then eventually you allow me to ask one question.
So especially in this episode, you're probably going to be sitting there a lot. So
I know Rick is really mediating between the two ADHDers. I know he has a couple of questions on like GPTs and generative AI, but what I want to say is you hit the nail on the head. I remember being in the classroom, and this was something. So one of the things I'm going to ask you, so be ready to answer this question, is how long do you spend sort of getting your students prepared? I would spend probably 2 weeks of the beginning of school. And I was doing a lot of get to know you activities. I wanted them to get to know me. I was going through processes. I was spending a lot of time on processes. But one of the things I did is I would have my students in the classroom put together the class rules. And I didn't want it to be so overwhelming, right? When I would go into classrooms, or I would see other teachers at the copy machine, they were printing off their 30-page syllabus. And I'm like, okay, that's going to take a really long time to go through. And will they remember all of it? Probably not. So I wanted them to have ownership in it. And I think that is one of the best ways. I know we've talked a little bit about that in the book, but how many rules will you let them come up with? Like, are we talking 20, or do you like to keep it simple?
Oh my gosh, no, please. Well, first of all, 20 is too much for me to keep up with. So like, I imagine, so like my wife is a lawyer, right? So I imagine when she has to like find a rule, she looks through these statutes and these things. They're hundreds of pages long. It's absurd. And she has most of them memorized. Like she's nuts. Okay. So she's like, talk about like an AI brain. That's how her brain works. But, I don't want that, because I can't do that. I'm not good at that. So maybe 5.
Yeah.
I used to be really simple. I stole this off of the very first school that I student taught at in Pittsburgh. It was a Propel Charter School was the name of the school I taught at in Pittsburgh. And they had 3 very simple rules. It was be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. And at the beginning of the year, you kind of have the kids figure out and brainstorm, what does that look
What does
like?
that
What does
mean?
that
What does
mean?
it,
Yeah.
yes.
And when you go through the year, you just say, are you being safe? Are you being respectful? Are you being responsible? And so
Or
that was
if they
very
mess
simple.
up, right? If they are not hitting the mark, it's really easy then to say which three of these are you working on, right? Like
Hmm.
which one of those does that fall? Yeah, I agree with you. I think 3 to 5. I think keeping it simple, not something that we've talked about on a couple of other episodes, like we sometimes as adults, I see this everywhere in every place that I go, everything tries to be so over engineered. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know you're trying to improve the process, but I think if we take a step back and we just simplify it, right, then it has much more power,
But
you
do we
know?
think that it's also a lot of us try to be perfect every time? Like you know how I work, Tish, that
Yeah.
I tried to
Yeah.
be too perfect from the first attempt every time, which is why I end up spending way too long on it and
Yeah.
over engineering, which leads to over engineering. But
Yes.
really, it's if you're not being perfect with it, you can actually simplify it better.
Don't you think it's also not just being perfect, but like it's the risk taking? It's the risk taking involved in doing that, right? And a lot of people
Mm,
are fearful of taking the risk.
yep.
Go ahead, Matt. We're ready
You're,
for what you're gonna
I was gonna
say.
say you're taking my next points that I wanted to add here, but that's it. Like I one of the things I want to focus on this year, because again I teach math, is that mistakes are necessary. It
Hmm.
and I that's a really difficult concept to get through kids' heads. I mean, even as adults, right? No one
I was
likes
gonna say
making
adults.
mistakes. No one likes making mistakes, but when we're in a math classroom, you have to. I use this phrase that I paraphrase from Bob Ross. Okay. So it's not his famous, like, there's happy little accidents. It's not that. He actually has an episode where he essentially says something along the lines of, there's no learning without mistakes.
Yes.
And so my kids and I, we break down the philosophy behind that. And I tell them, I say, if I ask you a question and you know the answer, did you learn that thing or do you already know that thing? And they're like, well, I already know it. I said, then you didn't learn anything. I said, but if I ask you a question and you get it wrong and then you find out the right answer, you've now learned it. And they're
Yes.
like, it's like that meme
Yeah.
on TikTok.
Yeah.
What?
For real.
That.
But you're right. It's so interesting to me. I've said this often in multiple podcasts now. So I'm good. Rick is going to be like, Tisha, you've said this a billion times. One of the things I know in my role now, in my role as an instructional technology specialist and as a teacher, is you have to say things multiple times for it to really penetrate someone's brain and like resonate with them. Maybe it wasn't the right place and the right time. But why
And
are
you've told
kids
me
in
that multiple times as well, that one
yeah,
sentence.
right, but why are kids in school? Like they used to come to my classroom and be so anxious about not making 100. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why are you anxious about not making 100? The whole point of school is for you to come here and learn. You're not, if you show up and make 100 every day, what's the point of this entire building and me and everything else? So I just think it's that expectation. I love that you're doing it with math. I didn't feel confident with math. Rick, were you confident in math?
Of course I was. I was an outstanding student that was perfect every time. No, I was okay with math, but yeah, I wanted to go on and do maths further, but I wasn't good enough for that. So
See, we even have to work on Rick's attitude. I think it is also an adult attitude.
what's
Surely.
wrong with my attitude?
No, I mean, how did you word that? How did you word that at the
That I
very
wasn't
end?
good enough
Yeah,
at the end.
I'm like, do you see? Like we
Well,
have to.
I'm not going to be joining SpaceX and sending rockets up, am I? So
Yet.
Yes. See, Matt knows the deal. Yes.
The power of yet. Okay.
Mhm.
That's
He
it.
knows. Oh, he
That's
knows
it.
because I'll be like, you don't have the thing yet. You aren't doing the thing yet.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I think it's really powerful, Matt, what you're doing. I know Rick is gonna ask you a little bit about this. And when he asks this question though, I'm gonna throw a little like wrench in it. Okay. So when he asks the question, I want you to explain it to everyone as if they are 11 years old.
Easy. It's what I do every day. Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, maybe I should make it harder. How about 8-year-old?
Little harder. Yeah.
Okay, right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're just literally just throwing it over the fence to me and just going, here, deal with it. So, Matt, with one of the things that you're passionate about AI from our previous conversations and stuff. Before I get into the question that Tish is so eagerly wanting me to ask, what is your opinion on AI? Let's start with the basics and give people that are listening a bit of an idea if they've never heard of you, not listened to any podcasts or listened to your TikToks. What's your opinion on AI?
I am very much for the use of AI in classrooms with, students, teachers. I think that we should learn from the lessons of social media, and the earlier we can teach about it, even awareness. I mean, just basics. I think the better off that our students will be in their futures. With that being said, I also have to continually balance that with the major concerns that like everybody has with AI, which is, like the environment and things like that. I consider myself an environmentalist, and my wife and I, we try our best to do as much as we can. But being in a rural area, our options are limited when it comes to what kind of energy we can get, what kind of stuff we can do, in terms of being good for the environment. And there's a big investment right now in Pennsylvania, a couple hours away from me in Lancaster, where they are planning to build a giant AI data center right in the center of Amish country, because that's what Lancaster is known for, is Amish country.
Sure.
And I've seen a lot of articles about how these data centers are bad and things like that. And so that is something I try to reconcile with. And I think what I come up with at the end of the day is that, unlike other things that are bad for the environment and use lots of energy and use lots of resources, AI actually has the potential to possibly help reverse engineer some of them, like go backwards. So, growing alfalfa in the desert in California isn't going to help solve a problem somewhere else other than getting people beef, essentially, which creates its own problems. But, yes, these data centers use a ton of energy. However, if we can teach more and more people to use them for good, again, this is like you're trying to outrun the bad with the good. And that's my view is, I think if we can get more people on board earlier, you're going to see a lot more, really good things coming out of AI, really good solutions, problem solving, a lot of stuff. But you have to be aware of it early. You have to be aware of it early. So
okay, I'm going to interject, Rick. I'm apologizing already, but I'm very cognizant of our listeners, okay? And stop. Here's the thing. I know that we have listeners because I know that I've had teachers in my sessions who have not known something or been afraid to say that they've not been taught something. And they've come up to me after and said, thank you so much for pointing this out or for discussing it. I thought I was the only one. And, just by you asking the audience this question, it's helped me so much. So I want you to simplify what this means. And so you're talking to adults, because I know it's going to be the adults that are our age or older they really don't have a good understanding of AI. They hear it in the news. They know they're using it in some capacity, but I don't think they still quite understand. So when you say custom GPT to someone at TJ Maxx, I'm just randomly TK Maxx, whichever part of the world you're in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Custom GPTs. How would you describe that to like an 8-year-old in the line at TJ Maxx?
So, So I'll tell you this, how I explain it to my toddler who's 3.
Okay.
He says, I want to talk to the Bobot. Okay, so he calls it a Bobot instead of robot. We're working on that. But it's actually sparred a lot of really cool ideas for me by him calling a robot a Bobot. But anyway, I randomly, just to try it out one night, used advanced voice mode, and I said, hey, my son likes Paw Patrol, he likes dragons, he likes this. Can you tell a really cool story for a 3-year-old? And obviously with the new advanced voice mode, it's like exciting. It's like, and then it did this, and it's inflecting its voice and change, which freaked me out the first time I heard it, where, you're talking to ChatGPT and it's like, well, I mean, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry. Were you like umming? Are you saying in the middle? Like, yeah. So it's like a little freaky, but he was sitting there and watching the little dot, the little dot on the screen go like move around. And he was like, can it say more? And and it was like, sure, I can say more. And it just like kept going, But I think introducing it in little mini ways like that. And so to an 8-year-old, you say, hey, this is a robot. It's a machine. And this is a machine that is really good at understanding the way you talk. And this is a machine that can actually start to try to talk back to you. And so if you have questions or you're curious about something, this machine is a machine that could help you answer those questions.
That was good. That was great.
So,
okay, what about the when you're leading educator PD on generative AI, are you finding that the teachers already understand this concept? Okay, talk to me about that. How do you explain it to those teachers that are sitting, especially I'm really speaking for the veteran teachers, and I'm putting myself in that category because it can be intimidating, if you will, to be in a PD. And you're like, well, I've been teaching for this long. I know all the things about my subject, the thing I'm teaching. I know so many things and tricks on classroom management, bar the cell phone policy thing. But like, how do you lead them to that space where they are understanding it and they are open to it?
Yeah, so I use an analogy that actually I think ChatGPT like 3.5 helped me kind of come up with, that it is a genius level super smart librarian. Okay, so I paint them this picture that they walk into the library, and if you say to the librarian, I would like a book on history, the librarian's going to look at you and go, what history? Because there's a lot of history. And you say, okay, I would like a book on U.S. history. Okay, what part of U.S. history? Pretty broad there, okay? Not as broad as England, or anywhere across the pond, but it's pretty broad for us. And so I walk them through this example, and what I end up showing them is the power of giving context to the librarian. And if you say, I would like a U.S. history book from the civil rights movement focusing on Martin Luther King Jr. and his rise, and go. Okay. I said, so what you've done now is you've taken that librarian from looking at the whole library that's gigantic, and you got the librarian to focus on this really small part of the library. And so it's going to be a heck of a lot easier for that librarian to give you a recommendation on a book or good information if you provided all that context. And I said, so this machine is like it's like the internet, but if the internet could talk back to you and explain things to you, right? And so that's kind of how I go. And then I also, everyone's like, well, what about the hallucination thing? Everyone always brings up the hallucination thing. And it's valid.
Tell us what that is.
So, the general consensus out there is that AI, when you ask it a question or ask it for something, it has a tendency to hallucinate. and not like literally come up with like images and pictures. Now, we're probably pretty close to that, which would be really strange, but we don't need that yet. Please don't get there anytime soon. But it'll start saying things and you'll be reading them and going, that doesn't sound right. And then you actually do your own internet research and you're like, wait a minute, that's not right. So hallucinations, a lot of people call out that, you know, AI is not that great because it hallucinates. And how I explain the hallucinations is, if I ask you what you had for breakfast yesterday, you're probably going to be able to give me what you had for breakfast yesterday or what you had for breakfast this morning.
Yeah. Sure.
If I ask you what you had for breakfast on this day 20 years ago, you're going to be able to, okay, where was I 20 years ago? What was I doing? Where was I living? What would I probably have eaten for breakfast 20 years ago? And you're going to come up with an answer. But you have no way of knowing if that answer is exactly correct or not. But you are doing your best to answer the question based on the information that you have stored in your head. And that is exactly what AI is doing when it hallucinates. It's trying to do its best based on all the information that is in its head, which, by the way, is a lot more information than we have in our heads. So it's doing it much faster than we do as well. So that's how I explain hallucinations to people as well when they talk about that, because that's one of the most talked about things other than bias, which you'll probably ask me about bias next. No, so, you know, so
I mean, go ahead. You're on a roll. You're on a roll.
But okay, so I'll just say how I explain this to people too. So hallucinations, I just gave you an example of how a human can hallucinate. Okay. We don't view it as hallucination because we're pretty sure that we can remember what we did 20 years ago, where we were, what situation we were in our lives, what I probably ate for breakfast. Like, let's see, 20 years ago?
2005.
Oh boy. I could probably tell you exactly what I was going to tell you exactly what I was doing was probably not eating breakfast and sleeping until 11 o'clock, because I believe that was my freshman year of college. So that is what was happening. But, you know, again, or a Pop-Tart. Pop-Tarts were usually go-to in college. So again, I don't know, but if I had to take a guess, that's probably what it was.
Because you know yourself best and you kind of know your habits. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so this idea of bias is the same thing. If AI is fed data from the internet, if AI is fed data from people, right? People should be keenly aware that there are lots of really bad things on the internet. Okay.
Right,
so
like
if
bad information, untrue
bad information, all that, if all of that is all getting fed, okay, then when you ask it a question, how to get the cheese to stop falling off of your pizza, it is going to suggest to you that you put glue in the sauce to hold the cheese on there, which is the famous Google incident. When Google introduced AI overviews, that was one of the infamous things. And someone actually went and tracked down where that came from. And it was from a Reddit post that was satire. Right?
Yeah.
Well, if you just put glue on your pizza, then it will prevent the cheese. It was like 1/8 of a teaspoon of glue. Add it to your pizza, you know, and it was like that. And it was completely satirical. But again, this gets to the point of it's a machine, right? So, so the idea of satire, without you explicitly saying something is satire, even for humans, sometimes it's really hard to determine whether something is satire or not. So imagine how much harder that would be for a machine to do that just by looking at the text. There's no facial expressions. There's no content, you know, so that's how I kind of explain bias is you're going to get bias because this thing was trained on bias. Until we as a humanity stop being biased, then it will continue to produce bias information. And
What
until
we're
we
inputting
start
is what we're getting in the output. I
Exactly.
mean,
And
I mean, it
so,
makes sense, right? Like you think about, I always tell I tell everybody this, like, show me the 5 people that you're hanging out with, and I'll tell you what you're about, and that's the truth. Like, if I
mhm,
am hanging out with people who are influencing me in a negative way, I am outputting negative behaviors and words. And I think that's the same thing. That you're so good at explaining this in a simplified way for people to understand. And that's really why,
just,
Rick, I
being a teacher,
apologize.
no big deal.
Well, I
No big deal.
apologize again to Rick for interjecting because he does have his question, but I wanted
It's
to
all good.
really, I'm always going to come at our topics and our conversations from that veteran teacher perspective. I'm not always going to have popular opinions. You and I have talked about that before. I have some really
Yep.
unpopular opinions. We're going to talk more about your unpopular opinions and hot takes in a minute. But
Uh-huh.
Rick, you have the floor and the stage now.
I love how Tish is literally like, right, we'll start with question one, and
I
we're like,
know it's
we're
like
30
30
minutes
minutes
in,
in.
and well, this isn't really question one now because I think
Yeah, it's not.
one of one of the things you've pointed out, obviously, you get there are people that are going to be resistant to AI, as you pointed out, hallucinations, bias, all this kind of stuff, which is your. I know that's the go-to for a lot of people that are resistant to it. Um, I think one of the biggest things, obviously, we know what a resistance mindset kind of looks like, but if you've got a school that's wanting to consider putting AI into the classrooms or just giving it to the teachers, what would you say admins and leaders need to do to help the community understand the power of AI? Because I know one thing you've also said is get it to the teachers first before getting it to the students. But if the teacher's being the blocker, then we're never going to get it to the students. So how do you see being able to kind of lower the resistance of those that are very, do we say anti-AI, and allow them to be a little bit more flexible and understanding what they can actually do with it?
I Well, I think like understanding is the first part, right? And
Mm-hmm.
before a district would, I would hope that this is what happens, although I hear a lot that it's not. The district should not just be signing up for an AI program just because it's an AI program. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard so many districts in my area, um, one in a county that's 30 minutes away from me. I have teacher friends that teach out there, and they said, "Hey, our school just got Magic School," and I was like, "Cool. Um, what do you, did you get training on it, like or whatever?" They were like, "No, they just told us that we had it and like to start using it." And I was like, "Cool." And so for me, I'm like, "Who's gonna use it?" Again,
Yeah.
and
There's
you
no
guys,
strategy
right,
behind the implementation.
right.
And so, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I would hope that a school would start with the question of like, why do we care? Why do we want to embrace AI? Why do we even want to have this discussion of bringing AI in? What's the purpose behind it? Um, and then have a clear purpose behind why you want to bring something in. Start there. Okay. So, like, if your community and your school is totally resistant to AI, making them use AI is not going to be a good strategy. Um, Starting with why we think we need to do this. And I will tell you this right now, a lot of schools in my area, two of them now in my county, have just come out with their own AI policies that add into their technology policies.
Mhm.
Um,
Good.
and I wish I had
What are
a
those
little.
policies? Have you had, that's what I
So,
would love to know. And now
so
that's something that we should deep
yeah,
dive one day, right? Like, what does the
yeah,
policy say? It goes back to what Rick and I were saying the other day. I think I don't remember when we said this, but it was probably on an episode. It was like, oh, the cell phone ban is increasing student engagement. And Rick is like, okay, but define engagement.
Yeah.
Is
What is
that
it?
compliance or is that true learning engagement? And so I think, yeah, we have a policy or we have an AI tool. Sometimes it can get muddy because you're like, check. And then everybody's like having faith that there is a strategy behind that when it's just you're putting it in, right, to check a box, maybe? I
Yeah.
don't know. Tell me
No,
more
and
about it.
I think that's how I honestly, I think that's how some schools are viewing it, is like, especially now,
Hmm.
hopefully the audience has heard of the AI in Education Action Plan that is currently
Well,
released now in the
tell them
United
about it
States.
just briefly, Matt, because
So,
somebody's listening who
yeah, okay.
hasn't heard of it.
So, President Trump has put into action an AI action plan where essentially the goal is, we want students learning about AI in ethical and safe ways,
Hmm.
all the way down to pre-K. So they want to start talking about AI at all levels of education. And that was just, I think, about a month ago. There was an executive
Hmm.
order way back in April that kind of slow rolled through.
Hmm.
And of course, it was the end of the school year, and now it's the summer. So, but now this AI and Education Action Plan is really, uh, I don't want to say a mandate, but it sounds sort of like a mandate. Like, you need to start figuring out a way to implement this. And
Do
again,
you
there's not.
think, do you predict that there's going to be funding aligned to that?
I'll tell you what. So in the language that's currently there, no. But I will tell you this, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions or anything, but the way that I have seen right now that this administration is working is that there probably will be in the future funding tied to it, right? So
Mm.
if you're not complying with this, if you're not putting AI in your school or talking about it or even checking a box, then
Hmm.
you're going to lose funding. Your state's going to lose funding, and so on and so forth. It's a really weird situation, like in America right now, because on one hand you have the Department of Education that is like on its way out the door. Apparently that's what people keep saying, is that it's going to be gone. But you also now have them mandating an AI action plan
It's,
on their
yeah,
way. Like, hey, as we're leaving, just by the way, make sure you cover
Yeah.
this, okay? All right. Well, we're not going to give you anything for it, but you got it. Okay, cool. See ya. Bye. All right. Yeah, like, it's like,
okay. Hold on.
so,
Hold on, Matt? Doesn't that sometimes feel like when you're teaching and they're like, when you've been hired and you're like, get the keys to your classroom? And it's like, okay, bye. Like, you're going to do a great job. And you're like sitting there, still not really sure completely what you're doing or what your schedule is. Or it is so interesting, though. I do feel
1,000%.
like, yeah, it's like the messaging is conflicting. The messages are conflicting with each other. So I
But
would be
isn't that
interested.
just the issue anyway with a lot of things that come into place, that we're AI is going so fast that we're just very knee-jerking into all these different, oh, we need to do this because such and such is also doing it, so we need to make sure we're ahead of the game, and
I
we'll
mean,
say, go do it, but you need to work it all out.
right now that is the argument. The number one piece of this action plan is so that China doesn't win. Is so that we win. Like, that's the number one goal here, is so that we are better than China. And that, again, it's not a great place to start. And
What?
a lot of your veteran teachers, Tisha, a lot of your veteran teachers,
Yes.
this is going to sound very familiar, because this is exactly what No Child Left Behind sounded like.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, hey, we have
Hey.
this great thing. We want you to do it, but we're not going to tell you what to do, and we're not going to tell you how to do it, and we're not going to give you anything to support you in doing it, but you have to do it. You got this.
It's so interesting because
Mad.
the whole it is mad. That's a phrase that I have taken up from my British friends because it just encompasses, it's mad.
Yeah,
It is
everything.
madness. To expect people, and genuinely, even back to what you were saying with this district AI policy, like putting it in place, but what does it mean? You've bought the software. I talk about this a lot. If I'm going to buy something, I have strategy on how I bought this chair. It's supposed to be like one of those AI chairs, right? On Amazon.
AI chairs.
Well, no, ADHD chair.
I
Sorry.
was going to say, I was
Rewind.
like,
It's not.
an AI
Matt,
chair
Matt,
is
Matt
like
has
really
embedded
Is it adjusting to your like
to my
level?
movement.
Like,
That'd
well,
be great.
okay.
That would actually be awesome. No, it's an ADHD chair, and I researched and I looked it up, and I was like, before I ever purchased it. And it is crazy to me, being a former instructional technology specialist, the amount of times that software would get purchased. And I would say, what is the end goal of this? What do you want your teachers to know? It was no
it's a hype
different,
train.
but it was no different than a principal saying to me, where are your lesson plans? And me having to say, here are my objectives. This is what I'm doing with my activities. Here's how I say, but that expectation isn't on everybody else. It's so hard as a teacher to go into a classroom and go, okay, we've bought this software, this AI software, whatever it is, but it's just sort of thrown at you. I'm like, that's not good teaching practice in general.
And so this is where I think getting back to the original, like, because I go off on tangents all day. That's Rick. You knew what you were in for today, Rick.
Yeah,
so,
I did. I tried to bring
express.
it back a little bit.
But so, like, getting back to the district question, the idea is where, like, what's the purpose of it? So a lot of people right now are jumping on the, as Rick just mentioned, like the hype train of like AI will save you time. There was some paper or study that came out was like AI saves 8 to 10, or what is it, like 6 to 8 hours a week of work. And I'm like, where? I use AI for a lot of the things that I do in my classroom, and I don't see that time saving. And frankly,
I think that's a myth.
Like, well, exactly. I 100% agree. And that's what almost everybody I've seen talk about this paper, especially on LinkedIn. They're like, where's that? And how do you measure that data? Like, how do you even measure that?
We should like actually do that in our week, the three of us, and like because I use ChatGPT, but as you were saying that, I was like, okay, I'm not actually sure it's saving me time, because half the time I'm arguing with ChatGPT to give me what I want, and I'm just like, fine, I'm closing you and I'm going to go use my own brain. That is what I was going to tell you. I believe, we talk about like data being, oh my gosh, there's so much out there in this world about technology. It sometimes drives me crazy. What I will go back to every single time, and this brings up that subject, is wealth. The measurement of wealth is actually going to be the ability to think, to critically think, and to problem solve.
Yes.
And I believe that we are looking at the wrong thing to solve the problems. And that is why sometimes I'm like, you know what? ChatGPT is literally taking more time from my day. I'm not even going to do that. I can do this on my own. I know what I want. I know how to do it.
Let me throw a spanner in the works.
Okay.
What if
I know what a spanner wrench is, so I love this. I actually had to use one. Fun fact, I worked in the oil field and had to use a spanner wrench regularly to
Matt, in the oil field? No way. Yeah. That is like the roots of Tisha Poncio, the oil field.
Natural gas field, I guess.
Well, back in the 80s, it was the oil field. And that is how I grew up. My dad, like the smell of oil was like normal to me. Yep. Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Sorry.
Throw your spanner in the works.
Yeah. So, right. We say that we don't think AI is actually saving us time.
Okay.
But could it be that it actually is saving us time, but because we've got such hectic now approaches because of everything else before AI, that we're just consuming that time with everything else that we did? Especially for teachers, when we know that teachers are heavily burnt out, over demand, we're condensing everything down with AI. Like, I don't have to write out completely from scratch this rubric or whatever it is. But now I've done that, I'm now looking at my next lesson plan, or I'm marking something, or I'm having to sort feedback out.
So you're saying rather than saving time, we are saving time, but it's getting filled with other things.
It's exactly what I've been saying since day one of, we get to cut your time down, so you get to spend it on things that you like. No, you're just filling it with more work. That's all you're doing, because we know the feedback and stuff isn't actually, it's all right. Feedback isn't something that's massively done. We're using AI to fill that in. So really, AI is just doing a job that we don't do right now. So that's definitely not saving us time. But the things that are saving us time, we're just filling with other
So do
things.
you think that that is why they're buying the software or whatever for AI, because it is under this like idea that it's saving time? But
Uh,
as we know, Matt, in the school districts, if you have a free moment, it's getting filled with something. And if you are on a committee, you're doing something else, right? That is such an interesting little
no,
toss in,
so
right?
That's
I'm glad that you said that, Rick, because that is I'll never forget. I think it was on Fonz's podcast with he had Dee Lanier and
Shout
Ken
out to
Shelton.
Fonz.
yeah, we
Yeah,
love
Dr.
Fonz.
Fonz.
Doc Fonz.
Congratulations.
Doc Fonz.
Doc
Shout out.
Fonz.
But he had Dee Lanier and Ken Shelton on his
Mm-hmm.
podcast after they released their book. And
Yes.
that was Dee's big point. And boy, did that stick with me. It was, so first of all, it was um, quit doing, the idea of AI was being sold, and I think still is being sold as doing the same old, just faster. You can make a
So
worksheet
the
faster.
bad
You can make a
pedagogy
quiz faster.
faster.
Right.
Yes.
That was Dee's
Yes.
big point. And then Ken's big point was the faster we get the work done, the more our
more
district
work
can
there
fill
is.
in to do.
That's what I say too.
And so, yeah. And
Yeah.
so he says, like, a business, if they see, and I try to have these conversations with my friends, like my close group of friends. We play video games together almost every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be a weird world when
What
like
video
this
game?
age group
I want to
gets
know about
older.
this. Yes.
what-
What video games are you playing?
So we play hockey
Side note.
right now,
Okay,
NHL
hockey.
25.
Nice.
We
Yes.
play
Yeah.
Yes.
Rainbow Six Siege together.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
They just got into this new one that is all over TikTok. It's called Ready or Not. And it is
What is that?
it's like Siege. It's a military type game.
Okay,
You
okay.
take the role of a police force tactical SWAT team, and you like actually it's very slow. So people are used to like Call of Duty where you're like
Fast.
running around,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
Running around and
You
just
have
go
to
for it.
go slow. You have to check your corners. Like there have been actual combat vets and like actual special forces guy that go on and they say all of our training actually comes into play in this game.
Wow.
And so it's really fun.
So all of your video game friends, are
Mhm.
they educators or are they
No.
outside?
So
Okay.
this is this is where I was going with this, is that they all have remote jobs. Okay, so all of them have remote jobs.
Mhm.
They are constantly, and I hate this about them, I always tell them this, but they are texting all the time in the middle of the day, like, hey, it's my lunch break, you want to get on and play? And they're all
my
like
God.
playing in the middle of the day, blah, blah, blah,
What?
whatever, because they all can do their
FYI,
work.
FYI, that is not how my remote virtual job goes. Okay,
know.
I do not have time to play video
It's
games.
not normal, but like every day they have at least an hour or two a day because
Wow.
they know that the work that they have to get done, they know exactly how much time it takes them to get done, so they know exactly how much time they have to relax, quote unquote, even though sometimes the video games are not relaxing. But but the idea is like, as a company, as the head of a company, if I see that this guy's doing all his work in like 6 hours, then I could give him more work.
Okay,
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about the idea of companies doing that.
rewind that though, Matt. That is a mindset. That is we work 9 to 5, 9 to 6. You should always be working. Here is what I know about our brains, especially mine and yours. Our brains do not operate on a 9 to 6 schedule. My brain is going to crash out around 1 p.m. I can tell you that very consistently. And I've even communicated with my colleagues, like, I'm really not going to schedule meetings around this time because you're going to get the worst version of me. I have been on for all of these hours. I'm going to need a little like brain break. So I think that is pushing back on a mindset and really a structure that's been in place with companies for a very long time, right? We could go all the
But
way
it's a-
back. Same thing with classrooms. Mhm,
Yeah,
you're
but it
right.
is a pushback, and that's
It
the
is.
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to be happening here is, and even more so to add on top of that. Well, if AI can do this guy's job, then why don't I just pay for an AI to do this guy's job? Because then I don't have to worry about them
Back to
ever
your
being off the
point,
clock, right? Like,
But
so
back
it's just
to your point, AI is not going to do the job in the way that you would do your job, like you
Sure.
said. And
Yeah.
I think there's so much here. You always open my brain up, and
Sorry.
like I have so many things
My
in
kids
my
get mad at
head.
me. My kids
I
get
love
mad at
it
me. They're
though.
like, man, you like
No,
make us think. Sorry. My
it
bad.
is. No, it's good. And this is
My
what I'm
bad.
saying. This is why we wanted you on the podcast. We want these conversations to really get people thinking and questioning and coming up with their own ideas and their own beliefs. What, instead of just following what everybody else is doing and whatever trend is out there, I think it's important to think through it and take space to do that. I
100%.
want to hit on something specifically, and you've talked about it a couple of times in the last 50 minutes that we have been on. I know it hasn't been like recorded 50 minutes. I don't think it has it? Maybe.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so you've talked about authentic assessments, and you have said it multiple times. I've heard it. I knew I was going to ask you this question. I already knew, but you've described today's assessments as I love this quote, as a standardized test regime. I love that phrasing so much.
What it is. I mean,
I want you to paint a picture for the listeners, especially those that are like me, just listening and not watching the video. Paint a picture for us on how authentic assessments might work in a classroom. And I want you to speak again to these veteran teachers who are just cannot even imagine, right? Like that is what I want you to kind of speak to.
so I will say this. What I'm about to talk about is a perfect use case of AI for a veteran educator that doesn't have a lot of experience with this, because this was my ultimate goal getting into AI in the first place. Was I want to change how I do things. So I don't just want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. I want to change it. I've followed pretty much like the SAMR model, the substitution, augmentation, forget what the M is, modification.
The M is
and
modification. Yes.
reimagining or redesigning.
Redefinition.
Redefining. Yeah. Something.
Yes.
Redefining. So
Rick is
substitution.
scratching his head. He's supposed to know all of these because we talk about these on the podcast.
I'll be completely honest. I just had an itch, so
I'm sure.
A thinking itch. My kids get those thinking itches all the time too. It's weird. Must be a thing. Anyway, but like I started with like, okay, let's, instead of me writing the lesson plan, let's see what AI can do for a lesson plan. And then I started to augment, which was, okay, I don't want to do the same lesson. I want to get my kids out of their seats. So what's a way to get my kids out of their seats? How can I make this an interactive lesson? Cool. And then the modifying, right? And again, okay, so now I have them out of their seats. What more can I do with that? How do I assess them now on the other end? And this is where authentic assessments come in, right? So authentic assessments are kind of all the craze. And I think teachers are going to see a lot more talk of project-based learning hugely in the age of AI, because project-based learning and AI are like two peas in a pod. Like they belong together. Because with project-based learning and with authentic assessment, it doesn't matter if the kid used AI to do it.
100%.
It doesn't matter because the assessment is authentic. Okay, so what we'll say like that. I think the easiest example that teachers can imagine for an authentic assessment is like a presentation. Okay, so like a PowerPoint presentation. I feel like that is the not to put down PowerPoints, but that is like the most basic.
Okay, but hold
authentic
on.
assessment.
PowerPoint. I have to speak here. Because PowerPoint, like, it is death by PowerPoint. If we are putting so much time into PowerPoint and then we are asking people to sit on and listen to us talk, like what I know as a learner, either you've got me because you are really good at presenting and you have my attention, but most of the time I am drifting because all I see are just words on the screen, and then it's Charlie Brown's voice in my ear, right?
Ooh, or the
colors. Teacher's voice.
Oh,
yes, exactly.
Colors. Oh, that's
then,
a gamma. This teacher used gamma to make a presentation.
if you're Rick and you're I already know what Rick does. He's probably looking at the PowerPoint like totally literally critiquing the color scheme and the layout and the white space and all of the things. So you're right.
No, I'm
The
No.
the PowerPoints are not. Look, that might be the title of this episode's PowerPoints are not where it's at, guys.
No, but I use that as an entry point because I think when you talk about authentic assessments, it can be quite like abstract to a lot of teachers because they don't have that experience. They've never.
Yes.
And so a presentation is the most basic example. But now with like technology, you can do a whole bunch of things, right? So I know a lot of schools that were using iMovie to make to make movies. I know a lot of schools that were using like Adobe Express to do like podcasts, right? To record podcasts.
Yes.
So like, and this is one thing too that I like to use AI for is when my brain like runs out of ideas. Like, okay, so I just named you like 4 or 5 ideas right there, but like what else? Because I know that's not covering, universal design of learning for all these different modalities. I know it's not covering that. So I'm like, I need more.
So whenever we talk about a presentation just by itself, like I know one of the ways that like, adding audio to it is one of the ways that you can enhance that. And then, I mean, I think what it comes down to, Matt, if you want to use PowerPoint, like honestly, use PowerPoint. What we're really saying is level it up to something that is engaging. And whether that is you give a student ownership of creating their PowerPoint, there's so many ways to do that. I used to put my students in charge and I'd be like, here's this piece of information that I've given you, whatever it is, whatever I was teaching them. Maybe we were talking about branding. And then I would like, okay, you're going to start the slide deck and you're going to focus on this topic. And then you're going to pass it on to Jill and you're going to add to that. And so there's so many ways to utilize PowerPoint if that's what we're going to do. So I think the whole idea here is, and I don't even know, maybe we can come up with like a phrase for people who really can't see it. I just don't know what the analogy would be for them.
It's easy. It's pretty much doing something that is not a quiz. That's it. Like literally do something that's not a quiz. And I'll tell you, this is where the first 2 weeks of school, like we were talking about, the beginning of the school is really important because I tried this last year in around the middle of the year. I had been giving quizzes and I said, we're going to gradually ease up on these things. Okay. I use quizzes as retrieval practice. I don't call them quizzes. I call them retrieval practice. That's why 99% of them are not graded. The kids are like, if they're not graded, then why should we try? And I was like, well, that's a reflection of your character, not mine. So that's what I say. I say, if you are going to not give me effort, then you are not going to learn anything. So that's where.
So I think it's interesting. I think what you're saying is don't ditch the quizzes completely. We have to have some way to check where they are. It's interesting. I went for pizza yesterday. And the
great.
girl, I love pizza. Like pizza is amazing. So
Squirrel.
I know. I know. Here's what I'm going to say though, because I didn't expect her to say this. I said, you did such a great job. I always do this whenever I'm out, especially for young people. So if they are in their teens or early 20s and I see them doing something incredible, a real life skill that is just like phenomenal, I'm going to point it out and I'm going to tip them extra. And so she was incredible. It was our first time at this pizza place. She brought out on the house all the sauces so we could try them all to go with our pizza. And like, she just went above and beyond. So I complimented her and asked her how long she'd been working, and she said 3 years. And I said, wow, that's a really long time. Like, tell me what you like about it. And she said, well, what I love is that we are tested on our, obviously, products, like the pizzas and the sauces and all of the things. She's like, we're tested every month. We have a test every month, a quiz. And she's telling me about this platform that she's taking. And I did not anticipate her to tell me that she enjoyed working there because they were quizzing her on the content. That just did not even enter.
Listen.
And I thought, she is doing the real world work, the customer service, all of the things that we want to teach in that real world environment. And she says she likes the quiz.
Hold on. There's props. Hold on.
Okay.
Props.
We like props. Yep.
That business is using cognitive behavioral science techniques. By doing it every month, you are incorporating the whole spacing
100%.
idea.
100%.
Okay. Because if I teach you something and I give you a quiz on it right away, you're going to do very well because you just learned it.
Yes.
So one thing I'd never do, and I don't do, is I do not give exit tickets anymore. I give entry tickets the next day. And I say, hey, here's name me two things we learned yesterday. How confident are you that those two things are right? Like all these things, right? So the more we can do that, and guess what? She enjoys that because you know why? She feels empowered to work there because she's like, I know this and I'm really good at this.
And that's exactly what she said. She goes, I know all of the stuff and I know how to explain it to the customer.
Imagine if all of our students could feel like that.
Imagine that. Like,
right.
Honestly, and it's incredible. I love that tip. Will you say that tip one more time for the teachers listening? Because you are not giving them the quiz right after you've given the information. You are giving it the next day, right?
Yeah. So I will give a shout out. This book was called Powerful Teaching. It's by Dr. Pooja Agarwal and Patrice Bain. It's a teacher and a cognitive behavioral scientist team up and write a book. It's like beautiful. Patrice is a teacher who didn't know that she was using these techniques, like didn't know the names for them. She just did these things. And Dr. Agarwal is putting together all the research that's been done over the last 40 years and being like, hey, do you know you're doing this? And she's like, no, let's write a book together and let's teach teachers how to do it. And so the four main steps, one of them, the first one's retrieval practice. So can you retrieve information? Not just, simple quiz questions, but it is like having to go back and retrieve. This is what I try to explain to my kids. Like, if you don't have to think about it, you got it. It's good. Yeah. It's good. You got it. I said, the part that's hard, that is the true learning, is when you actually have to go back and actually pull it out of your brain. Like, you have to think a little bit before actually answering. The second one is spacing. So spacing is, I don't give you the quiz right after I taught you the lesson. It's fresh in your brain. You're going to do really, really well if I quiz you right after, okay? But if I force you to go through the rest of your day and you go to sleep at night and you wake up the next morning, and now I'm forcing you to dig back in your brain, what did we do yesterday, okay? Not only am I doing that, I'm also doing the third step as well, which is interleaving. So interleaving is mixing things together that you learn, all right? So let's say we learned about dividing fractions. This is like where I start the year, is dividing fractions, okay? So we talked about dividing fractions. I showed you a bunch of examples. You got to do a nice little project with pizza and all this stuff in the classroom. You got to do this stuff. You worked with it. The next morning, I'm going to ask you a question. One of them's going to be dividing fractions, but another one's going to be multiplying fractions. Another one's going to be dividing whole numbers, because those are things that you should already know. So I'm forcing your brain not to just focus on one thing. They did research where if you ask kids block questions, if I have 5 questions about dividing fractions and then 5 questions about multiplying fractions, they tend to do very well. Their brain actually has to work harder when you mix them all up and you mix them all together. And it actually forces you to learn them better. And then the final one is the one that teachers skip, which is where I'm hoping to utilize AI a lot more in the future, is feedback-driven metacognition. Okay? So metacognition, thinking about thinking. I write it on my board. The kids love the fact that they know like a big word.
Yeah.
And they're like, metacognition is thinking about thinking. And they learn that and that sticks with them all year. I leave it up on my board so that they can point, so I can point to it when I'm like, what are we doing right now? And I just like, over there, Teachers don't have time to go to every kid one-on-one and say, give me 2 things you learned from this lesson. What was really hard for you? What was difficult? Why do you think it was hard? What can we do to make it easier for you, right? One of the things I'm working for this year is to see if I is to use a chatbot to do that part. And then I can see the transcripts on the back end. And when I see the transcripts on the back end of a student conversation with AI, I can see where, okay, I need more time on this, I need more time on that. Or I can say, I got these 3 kids that need more time on that. They're going to come with me for a minute and we're going to go, so like, it is a tool. It's something that teachers don't get to do, but it's, in my opinion, one of the most important parts. Because if you're never thinking about learning or thinking about thinking, you're just like going through the motions. And this, I believe this is why most kids end up disliking school or having a bad relationship with school, is because you're just going through the motions and you don't get a chance to actually put value in what you're doing. Like the young woman at the pizza place, you don't get a chance to actually like show off your value, show off your
What you
learning,
know.
right? So that's where I can
So
say,
that's really
and
what it is.
yeah,
Project-based learning and authentic assessment is being able to show off what you're learning. Like you are confidently able to do that in whatever capacity that looks like, whether
in
it's
whatever
pizza,
way, and yeah,
right?
whatever
Exactly.
way you want. And that's, I have kids that are amazing artists, right? Draw it for me. Give me a comic, give me an artwork, and explain how does this show me what you learned. You know what I mean? So that, let them do what they're good at. And this goes back to the beginning of the episode here, like student-centered learning, saying, what do you want to do with this? Okay. Eventually, I'd love to get to the point, like referenced in Kyle Wagner's book, which is, shifting to student-centered learning. I'd love to get to that point where I could just walk in and be like, what do you want to learn? Oh, you want to learn about this? Okay, cool. You want to learn about that? All right, let's go. I'll help you get there. And I'm just going around the room. And Tisha knows I would love this because I'm just like jumping from this thing, jumping to that thing, jumping to that thing. I'm just going, and I'm like, this is the greatest day ever. Let's go, And the kids are like, wait, he's letting me learn about Greek mythology. We're in math class. It's like, okay, cool. Let's connect it to math class. That's my job, right? So the kid says, I want to learn this. I say, okay, let's connect it to math. That's my job. How can I connect this to what is in the standards? Okay.
Sure. Yep. Sure.
So, which again goes back to the standardized testing regime. So, but yeah, sorry, I talk a lot. I'm working on it, trying to get better.
No,
don't worry. We love it. We absolutely love it.
You have tons of nuggets from that little one bit, Rick.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, we're probably going to end up with a part 2, 3, 4, 5. I think this could probably a whole season on this.
We need to have Matt back
100%.
to talk about the feedback piece that he's going to test out with AI, because I'm interested in that. Want to know about that. So
that's a big if.
Really.
That's a big if. You know my backstory, my school district. It's I'm trying to help them see the benefits here, and that's really where I'm trying. So when you talk about people being hesitant and people being resistant, the idea is if I can show them evidence, if I can show them it in practice, I think that more people would be a little bit on board. When people hear me say, I want my kids to have a conversation with a chatbot, they think I'm just putting them in front of ChatGPT and letting them go to town. I'm saying put them in front of a controlled chatbot that I engineered and designed, I can see the back end. And I think they don't understand how that all works. But that's why the teachers need to know that before they can be like, wait, you're letting kids just talk to chatbots. There's so much nuance that doesn't get covered with the basic conversations that you'll see on a TikTok or on a LinkedIn post. There's so much more.
Matt, I wonder if you can create like a chatbot for your colleagues or your small group of people, right? And then you have them test it out among themselves, and then get a small group of students and test it out with a small group of students and see what that feedback is, and slowly get them there. Because it's a very slow progression with that.
And that's kind of where I went last year. Was I had a couple teachers who I would talk to about it all the time, and then they started doing things with it, and they were like, this is really cool what I can do with this. My buddy and I programmed a computer game last year that helped our kids with math fact fluency. He used Claude, I used ChatGPT, but we coded this game where I put a link in the kids' like Canvas, and they clicked on it, and it went straight to a browser, and it was like, you have a minute to answer these questions.
That's awesome.
And it gave them a score, and I was able to see and get their scores on the back end from the beginning of the year to the end of the year to see growth, right? So like, that's something. I don't know how to code. I don't know a lick of code.
I was about to say, and that sounds intimidating to those teachers who are like, I just learned what GPT means, Matt.
But that's what I like to showcase there, is that these are the steps you go through, right? So you go through that substitution, that augmentation, and then you're like, wait a minute. Instead of me trying to search endlessly through TPT for this perfect resource that I want to use, why don't I just make my own?
Yeah.
Why don't I
Oh,
just build my
we,
own? So
that's
this is
it.
like the
That's
whole,
it. The
yeah.
confidence to
It is.
build their own. I think
It's
that's
a
really
stepping
good.
stone. That's all it is. It's
Yes.
stepping stones to which we do with absolutely anything that's new to us. We've been doing it for decades. This isn't
Yes.
any different. So, I think it's about time we do Juice Box Confessions,
It's
Tish.
Juice Box Confessional time. I know we have some listeners who sometimes fast forward to Juice Box Confessionals with Tisha because they like this part of the episode. So Matt, we do this every episode. I always ask a random question to our guests,
Oh
typically
boy.
never the same question at one time. I'm gonna start off with an easy one because we've kind of pre-talked about this. But tell me what your favorite childhood drink was.
Oh, childhood. Oh, yes. Oh, my childhood drink. Oh, hands down. Hands down. Yeah, well, we could go on about the adult. Anyway, so childhood drinks. Um, Kool-Aid had a flavor. Iced blue raspberry lemonade. Okay. It is the most radioactive blue looking color. It almost looked like coolant. Okay. But
That's so funny.
I graduated from the Ecto Cooler, Ghostbusters Ecto Cooler to Ice Blue Raspberry Lemonade Kool-Aid.
That's so
Yeah.
how many pitchers of that would you drink in a week?
Oh, don't. Yeah. No, there's
Don't.
no number.
Don't.
It's
That's the
large.
answer is
So-
don't.
Don't go there.
So here's a fun fact too. Some people will get this joke. So like I was kind of raised by both of my grandparents. I was very lucky to have both sets of grandparents, and I would switch off between the two of them throughout the week because my mom and dad both worked full time. One grandma would make the Kool-Aid with the full amount of sugar, like
Oh,
the
yes.
one cup of sugar was what you're supposed to put, right? My other grandma put like a half a cup of sugar.
Yep.
And I was
Yep.
like, this is garbage. Like, why am I like this? Why does this taste so much different? Okay. I didn't find out until I was like in my teens. Like,
That's why
that my
it
grandma
wasn't good.
explained it to me. Like, yeah, no, I don't put the full sugar in there because you didn't need it. That was her exact words. You didn't need it.
But she also
so-
wasn't drinking it, so she didn't know how bad
Correct.
it tasted, right?
She made it specifically just for me, right? And this was
That's so
both my
funny.
grandparents. It was so funny. Their houses were stocked with Pop-Tarts and like Oreos.
Yeah.
She never touched them. They were
Yeah.
just specifically for anyone who came to
Yep.
visit. And
Yep.
because that was our
I think
culture that
that's
we grew
huge
up in.
willpower though in the 80s for all the
Oh, yeah.
people to have all of the junk food for the kids and not even touch it. So interesting. Okay, here's your real
Yeah.
question. Are you ready
boy.
for Juice Box Confessional?
real
This is
question.
the real question.
Get
Okay,
serious.
if you could have in this moment right now, like you said it and it was in front of you, if you could have any childhood toy or electronic back right now in your hand, what would it be?
Geo Safari. I don't even have to think about that. A Geo Safari.
Tell me more.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so
curious what it is.
Okay, so I actually tried to look to find one on eBay. They're stupidly expensive because they do not make them anymore, okay? So a Geo Safari was a card-based educational game. And Geo Safari is probably the reason why I ended up becoming a teacher, okay? So it was this simple game where they had these big cards that were about the size of a computer monitor. And they were just a card. You put them on there, and what it did was you would turn it on, and every card had a code up in the corner. You'd type in the code so the machine would know, okay, that's this card. And these lights would move around the outside. It had like 20 lights,
it.
I think.
I see
And
it.
these lights would move, and it would stop at a point. And it would, so for example, one of them, one of my most favorite ones was landmarks, world landmarks. Okay. It would stop at the name of the landmark, and I would have to type in the number of the picture of the landmark that was on the map in the thing. Or it would stop on the name of an animal, and I'd have to type in the number of the animal. I learned like the 7 wonders of the world. I learned world landmarks like Angkor Wat and Tenochtitlan, which I don't think I said that right. I'm doing my best. I learned these things when I was like 8. I had no business learning these things, but I was like, it's the cool building with a lot of steps. That's what
No, I'm
Tenochtitlan
seeing
is
it.
in Mexico. And
All of the
Angkor Wat.
cards.
I was like, and Machu Picchu. I learned about all
Yeah.
these things because I played this game religiously every day. Like I had to replace the batteries weekly. It took 4D-size batteries, and I had to replace it weekly.
4D size
Yeah,
batteries,
I had to
Matt.
replace them weekly because and my mom kept like there was solar system cards, there was
I was
math
gonna say,
cards, there
I'm
was
looking
English
at them.
cards.
There's U.S. political holidays, the long and short of
Oh,
it, critters from around the world.
there's phonics. There was
What should I?
phonics. There's
World landmarks, holidays on the farm. This is just this particular one on Etsy, which has already sold. I'm guessing for a lot. Oh, it was $90
yeah,
on
that's
Etsy.
silly. I mean, I
Wow.
probably would spend that, but I'm telling you, I spent so much time on that thing when I was a kid, and it's so simple. It's so simple. Actually, you just gave me an incredible idea that I
Good.
am going to work on
Good.
because it was so wonderful for me. Again, here's the power of AI, right?
Yes.
Why don't I recreate an electronic
Yes.
version of Geo Safari?
Yes.
Exactly.
Where a
And
card
if
pops up
you're-
on the screen and the kids have to type in the
Have to-
code and the thing, and
Yes.
it could be the exact same thing just on a computer screen.
That's amazing. And if you
Writing
are
that down.
listening and you happen to be cleaning out your garage and you find one of these Geo Safari electronic,
Message me on TikTok
learning
or
joy-
LinkedIn, and I will send
Yes.
you my address and
Yes.
Venmo. Okay,
Yes,
let's go.
yes.
Let's get this done.
Matt is ready. Matt is ready. Well, that is my Juice Box Confessional for today, Rick. Thank you for letting me do
Amazing.
that. Then Matt, thank you for
That was
answering
fantastic.
my crazy fun questions. Retro, I want you to show off your cup because you have your Superman cup. What is inside of it? Is it your Kool-Aid?
Is it
This
Kool-Aid?
is the my new version of blue ice blue raspberry lemonade
Okay.
drink mix.
I have
Yeah.
lemon water with
Aldi version.
Oh, Aldi version. So
Yeah.
this cup that I have never introduced my cup, Rick, but this is my Tigger cup, and it actually is from the 90s. Officially, I got it at the Disney store when Disney was like actually selling Winnie the Pooh stuff. It is a vintage 90s Tigger cup. It's my favorite. And Matt, yours is from TJ Maxx, maybe? I'm
Probably,
just-
yeah. I'm not sure. Listen, so you guys probably know this, but like when you're a teacher, every teacher has their thing that they're. I posted
Yes.
about this on LinkedIn, and I thought it would do way better, but it didn't. I guess people are too professional for this, but I was like, every teacher had their thing. I remember I taught in a district where the teacher had a thing for M&Ms. And she had literally like all the toy M&Ms like lined up above her board, and like she had she went to like the local like gas station store that had a display where you could reach into the M&M body to like get. She like literally put like class rewards in there. That was her treasure box. She like asked the store, "Can I have this?"
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
that's where she puts like her treasure box is in this giant
Wow.
M&M that just stands. So
So
like
Superman.
mine is Superman, 100%. I toned down on how much I put it around my room. I have like a shrine, and my kids call it the Superman shrine in the corner. So, but what I've done over the years, now that I have a toddler, he's 3 years old, I have taken some of those things in the shrine and given them to him to let him actually play
Nice.
with instead of me collecting them. They're not really collector's stuff. They're just toys. So he can have them. He'll have more fun with them than my kids will, just looking at them in my classroom going, boy, our teacher's weird. So I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
We love that
Amazing.
it's Superman. We think that's incredible. We think you're doing a super
Yeah.
job. Rick, do you
Really
have
do.
any last words for our
Uh,
listeners?
Yeah, so Matt, where's the best place to find you? Is it just TikTok and LinkedIn?
So
Or
TikTok
is
and
there-
LinkedIn, I am most active there. I'm currently trying to do the whole like setting up my own thing with a website and all that, but it's slow rolling. As Tisha knows, you know, I got my brain goes all over the place when it comes to like setting things up. But
Yes.
LinkedIn, I'm very, very active almost every day. TikTok, I try my best. I repost from TikTok to Instagram. I have forgotten that I have a Blue Sky account. And I have haven't posted on there in a while, but it's hard to keep up with all of them. Like we were talking about, you post on one thing and then you have to try to post on all of them. And I don't, I got a 3-year-old that nobody has time for that. So,
No, that's excellent.
And we're potty training now. So there's definitely no time for anything. Because if I'm not paying attention for 5 seconds, then there's a mess I got to clean up later. So That's life right now. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
No,
You were
it's excellent.
incredible.
It's been great. So all the links to Matt's socials will be in the show notes. If you're not following or subscribed wherever you are listening to the Played 3 podcast, please do like it if you have enjoyed it, because it is a great help for us. And until next time, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for being a part of this episode. Continue the conversation with us online. Subscribe and follow, and let us know if you'd like to join as a guest or if there's someone you'd like to hear from.
We'd love to connect with you on X, Instagram, and TikTok. All links and show notes will be available in the episode description. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and playing.